When someone experiences a panic attack, it feels like the world is closing in. Your heart races, your thoughts spiral, everything that was just a possibility suddenly feels like an immediate threat. But here's what most people don't realize. Panic attacks aren't just mental phenomena, and they're not just something you have to endure. There are concrete, proven ways to address them, and understanding how they work is the first step toward taking back control. Let's start with the most straightforward approach, a medication. We're talking about agents like selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors and serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. These medications work by adjusting the chemical balance in your brain, particularly around serotonin transmission. Now, you have to be careful with some of these medications because certain ones, like venlafaxine, can actually increase anxiety in some individuals before it gets better. It's one of those paradoxes in medicine where the thing meant to help you can initially make things feel worse. Here's the question everyone asks: if I start taking medication and then stop, will the panic attacks come back? The honest answer is probably yes. If you rely solely on medication without building any other skills or making any other changes, you're essentially renting relief rather than owning it. The medication can be incredibly helpful, but it's not the complete picture. This is where things get really interesting, because medication is just the first piece of a larger puzzle. The second piece is skills training. This is where treatment becomes genuinely empowering. When you develop actual skills to manage panic, you're not just covering up symptoms. You're fundamentally changing how your nervous system responds to stress. The most crucial skill you need to develop is the ability to break vicious mental cycles, literally snap yourself out of the spiral before it consumes you. Here's how a panic attack actually unfolds in your body. It starts with a thought. Maybe you notice your heart beating a little faster, or you feel slightly dizzy, or you have a fleeting worry about something. That single thought activates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your body's alarm system. Once activated, it releases a cascade of hormones: cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline. These are powerful chemical messengers that don't just stay in one place. They flood your entire bloodstream. Now here's where it gets complicated. Running along your spine are clusters of nerve cells called the sympathetic chain ganglia. These ganglia are like relay stations that connect your brain to your entire body. When you have that initial anxious thought, the signal travels down through these ganglia, speeding up your heart rate, increasing your blood pressure, making you breathe faster. The ganglia also communicate with small glands sitting right above your kidneys called the adrenal glands, pump out even more stress hormones. The real problem with these hormones is that they don't just affect one area, travel through your bloodstream and reach every single part of your body, including your brain. Here's what makes panic attacks so terrifying. Adrenaline does something very specific to your brain. It makes possibilities feel real, transforms potential dangers into immediate threats. That a moment ago was just a passing thought suddenly feels like a concrete emergency that demands your attention right now. Adrenaline also speeds up your thinking and amplifies your emotional responses. So now you're not just having one worried thought, you're having dozens of them, each one feeling more urgent and real than the last. The more thoughts you have, the more those thoughts activate your sympathetic chain ganglia. the more the ganglia fire, the more hormones flood your system. The more hormones in your system, the more intense your thoughts become. It's a feedback loop, a cycle that feeds itself and grows stronger with each rotation. This is what a panic attack is at its core, biological feedback loop that spirals out of control. So how do you break this cycle? You attack it from both ends, the thinking and the physiology. If you can interrupt the cycle at either point, you can prevent it from spinning out of control. This is where techniques like meditation and breathing exercises come in. You've probably seen in old movies where someone having a panic attack breathes into a paper bag. It looks silly, but there's actually solid science behind it. When your sympathetic nervous system activates during panic, your breathing rate increases dramatically. You start hyperventilating, taking rapid, shallow breaths. When you hyperventilate, two things happen. Oxygen levels go up slightly, but more importantly, your carbon dioxide levels drop significantly. Ventilation is actually more about expelling carbon dioxide than it is about taking in oxygen. When your carbon dioxide levels drop too low, you can feel lightheaded and dizzy, which of course makes the panic worse because now you have physical symptoms to worry about on top of the anxious thoughts. When you breathe into a paper bag, you start rebreathing your exhaled air, which is rich in carbon dioxide and lower in oxygen. Each time you exhale into the bag and then inhale from it, you're getting more carbon dioxide and less oxygen than you would from normal air. As the oxygen concentration in the bag decreases, your body needs to work harder to get oxygen. You can't just take quick, shallow breaths anymore. You need to breathe deeply, pulling air from the bottom of the bag where the remaining oxygen has settled. This deep breathing is the key. When you're forced to take slower, deeper breaths, your respiratory rate naturally decreases. And here's the fascinating connection. When your breathing slows down, your thinking slows down. The speed of your mind is directly related to the length of your exhalation. This is something that meditation practitioners have known for thousands of years. When you exhale slowly and completely, your mind calms. It's not magic or mysticism, it's pure physiology. A slow, controlled exhalation activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the counterbalance to your sympathetic alarm system. The parasympathetic system is your rest and digest mode, the part of your nervous system that tells your body everything is safe. By using breathing techniques, you're activating the parasympathetic side while simultaneously reducing the activation of the sympathetic side. You're breaking the cycle from both directions. The thoughts slow down because your breathing has slowed down, and the physiological arousal decreases because you've stopped hyperventilating and started activating the calming side of your nervous system. Now, here's where medication and skills training work together in a really elegant way. Research consistently shows that when you combine therapy or skills training with medication, the results are better than either approach alone. They work synergistically, each one enhancing the effectiveness of the other. But why does this happen? Imagine you have a panic attack that's operating at level 100 in terms of intensity. It's massive, overwhelming, completely consuming. Now imagine your skills for managing panic are at level 50. You've learned some breathing techniques. You understand what's happening. You're still developing these abilities. When that level 100 panic attack hits, your level 50 skills aren't enough. You try to use your breathing exercises, you try to calm your thoughts, but the panic is too strong. It overwhelms your ability to regulate it, and you feel defeated. Your skills weren't enough, and that failure can make you doubt whether these techniques work at all. This is where medication changes the game. The medication doesn't make the panic attack disappear completely, might bring it down from level 100 to level 50. Now, when panic strikes, it's at level 50, and your skills are also at level 50. They're evenly matched. You use your breathing techniques, and they actually work. You challenge your catastrophic thoughts, and you're able to do it. You've successfully managed a panic attack. And here's the beautiful part. Each time you successfully use a skill, you get better at it. You level up. Your brain learns that this technique works, and it starts implementing it more automatically. The next time panic strikes, you're a little faster at recognizing it, a little more skilled at deploying your tools. Your skills might now be at level 60, then 70, then 80. As your skills grow stronger, you can start reducing the medication. Eventually, even if a level 100 panic attack occurs, your skills have developed to the point where you can handle it. There's a perfect example of this with medication for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. These medications, particularly the short-acting stimulants, have a half-life of maybe 6 hours, and within about 5 days of stopping them, they're completely out of your system. You'll even go through a brief withdrawal period. Yet clinical trials show that the benefits of these medications can last for up to 6 months after you stop taking them. How is that possible if the medicine is gone from your body? It's because while you were taking the medication, it allowed you to build skills and habits. You learned how to focus, how to organize, how to manage your time. The medication gave you the boost you needed to develop those capabilities. And once developed, they persisted even after the chemical assistance was gone. But there's an even deeper level to all of this that most mental health treatment completely misses. Your experience of panic isn't just about those acute episodes when everything goes haywire. There's a baseline state to your nervous system. For people who experience panic attacks, that baseline is often shifted toward high alert even when nothing is happening. Think of it like a spectrum with the parasympathetic calm side on one end and the sympathetic alarm side on the other. Most people live somewhere in the middle, slightly toward the calm side. They can handle stress when it comes, but they generally feel okay. People who experience frequent anxiety and panic attacks live on the other end of the spectrum. Their baseline is shifted toward high alert, constantly running at a higher level of physiological arousal. Their resting heart rate might be around 90 beats per minute, when most people run around 70. Small stressors that wouldn't bother most people can push them over the edge into panic because they're already so close to that threshold. You can actually measure this through something called heart rate variability. Heart rate variability measures the variation in time between heartbeats, and it's a window into the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. People with anxiety disorders tend to have low heart rate variability. Their hearts are beating fast and steady into that high alert mode. People with very active parasympathetic systems and high heart rate variability might have a resting heart rate of 40 beats per minute. These are often athletes whose bodies are so efficient and so tilted toward the calm side that they can handle enormous amounts of stress without becoming overwhelmed. The exciting news is that you can shift your baseline. You can actually alter the fundamental state of your nervous system so that you're not constantly living on the edge of panic. One way to do this is through diet, specifically by supporting the production of serotonin. Most people don't realize that the vast majority of your body's serotonin isn't produced in your brain, but in your gut. Bacteria living in your digestive system. There's actually a type of bacteria called ruminobacter. And yes, it's named that because it makes people ruminate, to get stuck in loops of worried thinking. Studies have found that people with anxiety disorders tend to have higher levels of ruminobacter in their gut microbiome. People without anxiety have lower levels. By eating foods that support beneficial gut bacteria and starve out the problematic ones, you can literally change the neurochemical environment of your body. It sounds almost too simple to be true, but the research is increasingly clear that gut health and mental health are intimately connected. You can also shift your baseline through exercise, but it's even more effective when you use mind-body practices. Things like yoga and Tai Chi are specifically designed to train your nervous system to stay calm under physical challenge. These practices put your body into mildly stressful positions and teach you to maintain calm breathing and a peaceful mind despite the physical sensation. Over time, this training carries over into the rest of your life. Your nervous system learns that stress doesn't automatically mean panic, that you can experience physical intensity without losing control. Meditation works similarly, but focuses more directly on the mind. Regular meditation practice trains you to observe your thoughts without getting swept away by them. You notice anxiety arising. You don't feed it. You watch it like a cloud passing through the sky, and eventually it dissipates. With consistent practice, this ability becomes stronger and more automatic. This brings up something really important that many mental health professionals miss. Not all anxiety starts in the mind. Some people experience what's called physiological anxiety, where the panic seems to come from nowhere. There are no triggering thoughts, no obvious stressors. The body just suddenly goes into high alert. The mind scrambles to explain what's happening, often creating worried thoughts to match the physical sensations. This is one of the biggest failures in modern mental health treatment. 80% of mental health professionals have very little to no formal training in physiology. It's not their fault. Decades ago, Western medicine made a massive mistake by separating the mind from the body, treating them as if they were independent systems. Psychiatrists are somewhat unique because they do receive training in both physical medicine and psychology. Most therapists and counselors learn primarily about thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without much understanding of the underlying biology. The connection between body and mind became clear to me years ago when I spent time studying alternative medicine practices in India. I visited ashrams where people came for treatment of various conditions, including panic disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. I watched people arrive on day one, fidgeting constantly, uncomfortable in their own skin, unable to sit through a meditation session without their anxiety overwhelming them. They would hyperventilate, have to leave the yoga class early skip evening sessions because it was too much. By day 30, these same people were completely transformed, calm, happy, engaged. The change was profound and visible, and they weren't taking medication. They were eating different food, practicing yoga and meditation daily, following a structured routine that addressed their physiology directly. I saw it happen over and over, and it convinced me that we were missing something huge in Western psychiatry by focusing almost exclusively on the mind and ignoring the body. There's also a fourth dimension to treating panic that's harder to quantify, but can be incredibly powerful for some people. This is the realm of deep psychological work, the therapy that tries to uncover unconscious patterns and resolve deep-rooted conflicts. Different schools of thought describe this differently. Some talk about complexes, others about defense mechanisms or archetypes or unresolved trauma patterns. The common thread is the belief that there's something happening beneath the surface of your conscious awareness that's driving the panic. And if you can bring that something to light and resolve it, you can be cured. I've seen this work. I do a form of work that's in this ballpark, exploring deep patterns and unconscious material. The problem is that the results are incredibly variable. For some people, this kind of work produces dramatic breakthroughs. They discover the root of their panic, they process it, they release it, and they feel genuinely transformed. For other people, they can be in this kind of therapy for years with minimal improvement. The research on this type of treatment is challenging because there's so much variability. Every therapist works differently, every patient is different, and the length of treatment needed can range from months to years with no clear way to predict who will respond and who won't. I've had patients who spent 5 years in traditional psychoanalysis with limited benefit, worked me using different techniques and improved dramatically within months. Does that mean their previous therapist was bad? Does it mean psychoanalysis doesn't work for certain types of panic? I honestly don't know. What I do know is that when this deep work succeeds, it's the most rewarding thing a therapist can experience. You're there when someone has a genuine breakthrough, when they suddenly understand something about themselves that's been hidden their entire life, and you watch that understanding change them. I had a patient once whose anxiety and panic seemed to have no clear origin. As we worked together, she began describing these vivid memories or images of hiding underneath floorboards while heavy boots walked overhead. She could feel the terror of knowing that if she made even the slightest sound, she would be discovered and something terrible would happen. The fear was visceral and overwhelming. Did this actually happen to her? No, not in her current life. Could it be a past life memory? Extremely skeptical of that explanation, though I can't definitively rule it out. What seems far more plausible to me is that she saw something as a young child, perhaps a movie about the Holocaust or some other depiction of people hiding from persecution, and it traumatized her. That image embedded itself deep in her psyche and became the template for her experience of anxiety. She wasn't consciously remembering the movie or making a connection. The emotional imprint was there, driving her panic response, completely outside her awareness. Through our work together, we processed that memory or image or whatever it was. We explored it, understood it, and she was able to release the emotional charge attached to it. Her panic attacks diminished dramatically. For her, finding that origin point and working through it was transformative in a way that breathing exercises and medication alone hadn't been. Again, this kind of work doesn't follow a predictable timeline. I can't tell you it will take 6 months or 2 years. Guarantee it will work. What I can say is that for certain people, exploring these deep psychological patterns is the missing piece that makes everything else click into place. The reality is that treating panic effectively usually involves multiple approaches working together. You might use medication to bring the intensity down to a manageable level. You develop concrete skills like breathing techniques and thought, challenging to interrupt the panic cycle. You work on your baseline nervous system state through diet, exercise, and mind-body practices. And you might explore deeper psychological patterns to see if there are unresolved issues fueling the fire. Each person's path will look different because each person's panic has a slightly different origin and a different set of maintaining factors. What's consistent is that panic is not a life sentence. It's not something you just have to live with. Your nervous system is capable of learning and changing. Your brain is capable of developing new patterns. Your body can shift from living in high alert to living in relative calm. The key is understanding that panic is both psychological and physiological, that it involves both your thoughts and your body. Addressing both dimensions gives you the best chance of genuine, lasting relief. When you see panic for what it really is, feedback loop between mind and body, it becomes less mysterious and less frightening. It's still uncomfortable, still challenging. It's no longer this incomprehensible force that controls your life. Every time you successfully interrupt a panic cycle, you're rewiring your brain slightly. You're teaching your nervous system that it can calm down. The alarm doesn't need to sound at full volume for every stressor. Over time, these small victories accumulate. Your threshold for panic rises. Things that used to trigger intense anxiety become manageable. You develop confidence in your ability to handle difficult moments. And that confidence itself becomes protective. This is why the combination of approaches works so well. The medication creates space for you to practice your skills. The skills training gives you concrete tools that build confidence. The lifestyle changes shift your baseline so you're not constantly on edge. And the deep psychological work, when it's effective, resolves underlying patterns that might otherwise keep pulling you back toward panic. None of this is instantaneous. Building these capacities takes time and consistent effort. The effort pays dividends because you're not just treating symptoms. You're fundamentally changing your relationship with fear and stress. You're becoming a person who can experience anxiety without it spiraling into panic, who can notice worried thoughts without giving them the power to derail your entire day. That transformation is possible. I've watched it happen countless times. People who couldn't leave their house without having a panic attack eventually travel freely. People who avoided social situations because of anxiety learn to engage confidently with others. People who thought they would never feel normal again discover they full, rich lives without being controlled by fear. The path isn't always smooth. There will be setbacks and difficult days. But each time you use your tools, each time you interrupt the panic cycle, each time you challenge a catastrophic thought or slow your breathing or investigate an underlying pattern, you're moving forward. You're taking back territory that panic had claimed, and you're proving to yourself that you're stronger than you realized. Understanding how panic works, seeing the biological mechanisms and psychological patterns clearly, is itself a form of power. It demystifies the experience and gives you points of intervention. You're no longer at the mercy of incomprehensible forces. You're working with your nervous system, training it, guiding it toward healthier patterns of response. This is the real promise of modern treatment for panic attacks. Not that you'll never feel anxious again, because anxiety is a normal human emotion, but that you'll develop the skills and understanding to prevent anxiety from exploding into panic. Panic does occur. You'll have multiple tools for bringing yourself back to safety. That's freedom, and it's available to anyone willing to do the work.